No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
It will be your fault when people die at this facility.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate.
They are setting the precedent and inviting this harmful and lethal rhetoric into our community.
The prison, like, at the end of the day, there's cells and there's different sections, and then there's the rec area. So it's no different than any other prison, but it had a fresh coat of paint and it looked clean. So at the end of the day, that's what this facility is.
Stand up! Ice out! 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 Stand up! Ice out!
You cannot find in the Bible any support for the way we're treating these immigrants. This deals with basic fundamentals of Christianity based on love your neighbor. And that is a hard thing to do when the neighbor ain't like you. And the neighbor might not look like you, may not act like you, may not speak like you. But they are the same people created by God that you are.
So I work on a national coalition that's fighting family detention and fighting family separation, because we're seeing kids get separated from their parents or put in extreme conditions. Or even with this facility, even though it's not going to have children, men and women are separated. So if a brother is in one side of the facility and a sister is in another side of the facility, they're never going to be able to see each other. So even though children are involved in this one specifically, families are being ripped apart, spouses are being ripped apart. And that is a huge concern. Overall, with CoreCivic being morally and ethically in probably more black than gray area, just housing people for profit is not really conducive of building community or showing each other love and acceptance or welcoming and loving your neighbor, which is something that the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth really value. We're supposed to welcome the immigrant, welcome the stranger into our home. Instead, we are locking him up in a cage and putting him behind bars and making sure that everything is 10 times harder for them.
The current climate, I mean, ICE has existed before this administration, right? Detention is not something that was just created after this administration. But the increase in the handling of tactics and the handling of violations of rights has been really hard on immigrant communities here in Kansas City and all across Kansas, including Leavenworth, right? Because immigrant communities don't just are here in Kansas City, they spread all across Kansas, including Leavenworth.
Because we take money from CoreCivic, you're gonna owe them something. Trust me, the game, that's the game.
It's a disappointment to me that we're even here in America. I think that shame on us, because I hear people talk about, and it's so much bullshit. I hear the MAGA people say, well, we wouldn't be here if Biden had to let them all in, right? Well, let me tell you, ever since I can remember, people have been crossing that border. And I'm not saying that more people doesn't have it crossed during this administration or that administration, but they've been coming Republican, Democrat, right? This is not a Republican or Democratic problem. It's an American problem. I'm not saying it's a problem. What I'm saying is shame on us for allowing someone to live in our country for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's good, man. Everything's good. You're paying rent, you're buying stuff here, you're investing, you're working. And then all of a sudden we're going to flip a switch one day and say, man, you got to go. That's just so morally, how can we do that as a people?
There are issues that like don't necessarily like involve me directly, you know, like I'm not someone who's gonna get like detained by ICE, but just because something doesn't necessarily affect you doesn't mean that it's not important. And so like I don't have like friends or family who are at risk, but I am a social work major, and so that means that like all people are important to me. And so when it comes to things like this, I think it's really easy to ignore it because you're like, oh, it's not my business, you know, it doesn't pertain to me, but it's in our community. There are people in our community who are contributing members of our community who are great people who could be affected by something like this. It's not really motivated by legality or by justice. It's motivated by racism and motivated by the way people look or the way people behave, you know?
Well, I think two things. I think first of all, there's a sign out here that says, if deportation is the issue, why are we building prison camps? This is going on all over the country, and there's concern that there's long-term thoughts about gathering people together, and that's not good. I think that the big issue is moral principles. What is the city going to stand for? At some point, economics has to take a back seat to what our principles are all about.
I really do not like the things that are going on. They're just not humane. You hear so many times of people that are just being grabbed and detained with no due process at all. I taught elementary school and taught about the Constitution, and everybody, not just citizens, everybody gets due process. And so that's why I'm out here.
Well, our country has been, was created by immigrants and has been successful because we have accepted people to come into our country who were looking for a better life. And some of us still feel that way. But in the last few years, immigrants have become a dirty word. And unless you have Native American heritage, you're also immigrants, even though you might be 4th or 5th generation. So I think it's a whole value system that we have lost. It certainly is not gospel that we are treating people who are looking for safety and a healthy environment for their families and the ability to work. We've taken that away, and that's what we were founded on. So to go completely off center, as far as I'm concerned, it's time that people who respect our history and our brothers and sisters speak up.
I think anybody who has to live in fear of being arrested and dragged out of their job or off the street or out of a car with their family, this can't be happening in our country. Our country's for everybody.
From the beginning of the CoreCivic issue, like I said, I was there 14 years, so I've been protesting right here. Well, not in this spot, but this place, because remember, this is the one that got shut down. They reopened it, right? A lot of people died. A lot of women. It was a women's section. A lot of guards got hurt. They got to work on ICE. They got to work on and get the Border Patrol under control, because you can't represent people that's killing people. That's all.
I was on code team. We got a call to medical, a code. I went up there. I walked in. I thought he was dead. I didn't know, right? I don't deal with this. Like, that's not my gig to know when people are dead or not. And so we're waiting for the nurse to say, yeah, start CPR. And because she would be the one to tell us unless we were on our own, right? Because she was there. She's like, no, I think he wants to refuse his medical. Now, I haven't seen very many people actually die. And I've never seen anybody other than like my mom or my father die in a hospital, right? Of old age. It's different. His arm was like uncontrollably jerking, if that makes sense. And you got to understand, this seemed like forever, but it was probably just seconds that all this took place, right, for my mind. So he started jerking, and the nurse goes, we got to ask him. She said, do you want to refuse medical? And she laid this piece of paper on his chest. And his fist was like this as he's jerking. She stuck a pin in his fist. And as he was jerking uncontrollably, it marked on the paper. She said, yeah, he refused medical. You can go back to your cell, or back to your post. So we went back. Ultimately, he died. A guy in RHU, which is restricted housing, the SHU, we call it all kinds of things. They moved him to the shower roughly 12:30 in the morning, 12:30 at night. Typically showers were done in the day. I imagine they were running late or running over that day. They're so short-staffed. He stayed in there for an hour and 10 minutes. Showers are supposed to be no more than 15 minutes, and they have a deal where you're supposed to check on, when they're in the hole, you're supposed to check on them every 25 minutes, I believe, and you sign a paper. It goes with them. If they're in the shower, it hangs outside, if that makes sense. You document what you do. So he was in the shower for an hour and 10 minutes. When the officer discovered him hanging, he opened the door, started CPR, waited 18 more minutes before they called 911. There should have never been that delay, right? It should have been instantaneous. When he got on the radio, first thing he should have done was, called Unit 4, and they should have called. While he was in hanging, the officer walked by him 10 to 12 times. Think about that if that was your son, your brother, your sister, your loved one, 10 to 12 times.
The Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth also have the unique opportunity to sit on the Oversight Committee, which is run by the City of Leavenworth, that oversees the opening and functioning and everything within the CoreCivic ICE detention facility. We will have the opportunity to be on that oversight and make sure they're being held accountable to this.
When I read the special use permit, it said the Oversight Committee has the right to go in, but we have to give 2 days notice. Well, you can clean up a lot in 2 days. So is that, again, is the bottom line transparency or give us time to clean up our mess? The committee has only met once. And whether it's legitimate that we've only met once or whether this is a stall tactic, I don't know.
Many committees are put together just to please people. And I already think this is what this is going to be. It was a way for the politicians. Every politician that I seen interviewed the day after this vote, made the statement that, well, we didn't have a choice because of financially, but we have this great thing we got, an oversight committee, right, to try to kind of look like we're working hard. My question is this. I read the special use permit and the procedures. It's kind of got a lot of gray areas in there. Do you think, and Mayor Bowder said we can just shut it down, right, if they don't follow these. Do you really think that if they violate some of those policies, what are you going to walk in and say you're closed? I mean, really? And they talk about the legal cost, 17, I've got the records on that too. So far it's cost the city $742,000 in legal fees this year. So they started saying we can't afford it no more. So if you need to close it, CoreCivic's the city's gonna have to file suit, right, in court to get it closed. CoreCivic's gonna fight it, and here we go with this money again. And it's gonna stay open meantime, as this goes on and on and on in the courts. And they're going to spend a lot of money. So if they're not willing to spend the money on the front end, are they willing to spend the money on the back end? It's easy to say we can close it. It's a whole other thing with CoreCivic to do it.
A lot of these immigrants are working and contributing to society, but they're being portrayed as violent criminals and rapists. And then the next day, like, you're no longer in the comfort of your home. You're no longer seeing your child. You're no longer seeing your wife or your mother or your brother or whoever. You are on a 3-inch mattress in a white painted center block cell getting what was probably frozen food.
73% of the people detained in ICE detention right now are never been found guilty or charged with a crime. Now, the MAGA people will say, well, they crossed the border, they committed a crime. Many of them have overstayed their visas and things like that, which is a civil case, not a criminal case. And so they're being housed. And what we're saying is we just don't want you brown people released into our community.
So that is not how we show God's love for one another. How we show God's love for one another is welcoming people into our home, making sure that our immigrants have access to the immigration system, like to get their papers, to get their citizenship here, because they come here looking for a better life, wanting to build something better, wanting to settle their families down and contribute to society. But our system is set up in a way that makes it hard for them, makes it impossible for them, makes it so expensive for them. That's basically saying, unless you're wealthy or have money or have connections, like, we don't want you here.
CoreCivic is different in the way that it is a business. It's not just a correctional facility. Just to give you a perspective, there is 3 main ICE detention centers in Kansas. One is Chase County, the other one is the BOP in Leavenworth, and the other one is the CoreCivic facility. The one in Chase County has 100 and something beds for ICE. The one in the BOP has a contract for around 500 beds for ICE, and the CoreCivic one has 1,000 and something beds. So it's something that is definitely going to increase. Locally, regionally, or nationally, we're giving the capacity for ICE to hold more people there. I believe that the system is doing exactly what it was created to do. I don't think that the immigration system is broken. I think that it was created to do exactly what it needed to do, which is to favor white supremacy.
The current immigration system as it is not conducive of human dignity. It doesn't support the rights of all people. And then also when we look at CoreCivic as an entity itself, private prison benefiting and profiting off of human abuses, like human rights abuses, civil infractions, just isn't supportive of our mission and the work that the Sisters of Charity and the JPIC office do.
What is happening to the attendance of Hispanic children in the local school systems? Because I understand that those are dropping out of fear that, that as they go to pick up their child, there'll be problems or get turned in or those kind of things. Now we have a generation that's that are good people that are not getting educated, and I don't like that one bit. Is that fair to the kids? The kids are in this mess, and they literally don't have a voice, right? Their parents do, and I'm not blaming their parents by no means. That's not what I'm saying. But what a shame on us as Americans that we're putting such fear into families that they won't send their kids to school. But you know, over 50% Hispanic kids in Wyandotte County. You don't think those parents have fear? I want you to think, my grandson is 9. He knows what's going on in the world. So is my granddaughter, who's 7. But think about these kids that are going to school. They know that this immigration, these ICE raids are happening all over. I guarantee you there's kids out there that literally their biggest thing is wanting to get off that school bus and make sure mom or dad are still both home and haven't been picked up. What a shame, man. Shame on us for ripping our family apart.
Living here on the ground in Kansas City and working with the immigrant community, I can tell that my community is fearful. They're not just fearful of sending their kids to school, but also of going to work, of driving, of going to the supermarket, of doing something as simple as existing. I think as an immigrant, it worries me a lot, the way that this country is treating other immigrants. To me, it's not just about like the good immigrant versus the bad immigrant narrative, right? I think even as an immigrant myself, we get taught like do good, go to school, have a good job, don't get in trouble, lay low, and you'll make it. Through this administration, I think I've had more fear of driving, more fear of visiting even nearby spaces like Leavenworth, right? Or even Kansas City, Kansas. It has made me think about my future and about if I'm in a country that doesn't value me, doesn't value my skills, doesn't value who I am, maybe seeking my future in another country would be the best.
Do I think it's going to be different? I think there is an openness for it to be different. And as long as the communities involved, the Sisters of Charities involved, the city remains diligent at being involved, I think this facility can be different than the Leavenworth Detention Center, than Dilley, than anything else. So we have an opportunity to set the standard for how ICE moves forward, how detention centers move forward, how private prisons move forward in this nation. I think there's opportunity to maintain a relationship, maintain open communication, and build something different here in Leavenworth than we are seeing across the nation. This is not going to be the Alligator Alcatraz of Florida. This is not going to be Dilley of Texas. And the Sisters of Charity and the city of Leavenworth are going to make sure of that. And if it does come to that, we do have measures to take. We do have steps to take to make sure it doesn't come to that. And if it does, we will have the opportunity to rescind that special use permit and make sure that it doesn't continue.
If we come to a point where it is just CoreCivic agreed to it just to get in and just to open up, I think they'll be sorry that happens, because I think there are enough of us in the community who are concerned about, first of all, putting immigrants who have done nothing but come to this country illegally in the same facility as criminals. I think this facility could become a model for CoreCivic, for other, for their other organizations. And if so, then we've made a huge impact.
So there are a wide range of issues. I know there's concerns from students on campus about an ICE facility being so close. How is that going to impact their day-to-day lives? And all I can say in general to all these concerns and all these people that your concerns are very valid, that we don't have any answers to how things are going to look moving forward. This is something completely new and unexplored, especially in this time with this administration and how the outlook on politics and unrest is looking across the country. So what I would just say is keep asking questions and don't ever settle for the status quo. So if something just feels dangerous, don't get used to sitting in that feeling. Like if something feels immoral or unethical, don't get used to sitting in that feeling. Make sure to hold the city accountable. Be a part of holding CoreCivic accountable. Get involved. There are so many organizations that are working on this issue, not just the Sisters of Charity, but the Carceral Accountability Council. We have also the Advocates for Immigrants' Rights and Reconciliation, the ACLU of Kansas Interfaith Action. We have all been so involved in this work and are working on it from many different angles. If you want to get involved at a community level and be involved with mutual aid efforts, Boots on the Ground is a great avenue of caring for your immigrant neighbors and educating your community on what your rights are. So don't just sit there and fret with your concerns. There are ways to actively address them and get involved in the work that's already happening. And one more person could make all the difference in some of the efforts that are being had. So just keep asking questions and get involved. That is my message to the community, that you're not alone in this and we're all here to work together.
No fear! Immigrants are welcome here!